Everything you know about enlightenment is a lie. You were told it's something to attain, a distant goal. You believed that with enough meditation, study, or spiritual discipline, you would one day reach it. But here you are, still waiting for the moment when everything clicks into place. What if I told you that moment will never come? What if the very act of seeking is what's keeping you trapped? The mind loves the chase. It wants something to pursue, a problem to solve, a puzzle to figure out. It believes enlightenment is something to acquire, as if it were a rare treasure hidden in ancient texts or passed down by gurus. But here's the truth. Enlightenment is not something you gain. It's something you lose. You lose the illusion that there is anything to search for. You lose the belief that you are separate from it. And when there is nothing left to seek, what remains? That's the question we're here to answer. Today, we strip away the illusions, the mysticism, the unnecessary complexity. No vague spiritual jargon, no empty philosophy, just the truth, raw and unfiltered. This is the last video you'll ever need on enlightenment, because after this, there will be nothing left to look for. The moment you try to explain enlightenment, you've already lost it. That's the paradox, the hidden trick the mind refuses to accept. You want to understand it, define it, grasp it like a concept. But enlightenment isn't a philosophy, a belief system, or a set of rules. It's not something you can read about, study, or master. It's not hidden in scriptures, and no guru, no book, no teaching will ever give it to you. Because the moment you put it into words, it becomes something else, a shadow of the real thing. The mind craves explanations. It wants a framework, a structure, a path. It wants to know the rules, the steps, the methods. But enlightenment is not something that fits inside a method. It's not a destination you arrive at by following a set of instructions. It's not another achievement to add to your collection of spiritual experiences. It's the opposite. It's the destruction of everything you think you know. Think about it like this. Imagine trying to describe the taste of water to someone who has never had a sip. You can talk about it, analyze its properties, compare it to other tastes, but none of that will ever be the same as drinking it. Enlightenment is the same. You don't understand it. You don't achieve it. You experience it. And the experience is beyond words. That's why the greatest Zen masters, the wisest sages, the most enlightened beings throughout history have always pointed beyond language. They never handed out answers. They never told their students what enlightenment was. Instead, they shattered their assumptions, stripped them of everything they thought they knew, and left them with nothing. Because that's the key, nothing. Not an idea of nothing, not a philosophy about emptiness, but an actual absence of seeking, of needing, of holding on to definitions. The moment you let go of the need to explain, to understand, to grasp, there it is. Not as something new, not as something that appears, but as something that was always there. Look at your own life. Have you ever had a moment where there was no thinking, no inner dialogue, no analysis, just pure being? Maybe it was when you were completely absorbed in music, or staring at the sky, or lost in the rhythm of waves crashing on the shore. In that moment, there was no you. There was just experience, no separation, no division, no filter between you and reality. That moment, that was it. That was enlightenment. But the second the mind labels it, the second it tries to hold on to it, analyze it, define it, it's gone. The truth is, it never left. You just started thinking again. And this is where people get stuck. They chase that experience. They try to recreate it, hold on to it, make it last forever. But that's just more seeking, more grasping, more illusion. The mind tries to capture enlightenment like a butterfly, but the tighter you hold, the faster it slips away. The only way to see it is to stop trying to see it. Some truths are too raw for platforms like YouTube. That's why we share exclusive insights in our free newsletter, Insights Academy. For a limited time, you'll also receive the Kybalion, a hermetic text that reveals knowledge most people will never come across. If you're serious about seeing beyond illusion, sign up now at the link below. The mind will fight this realization. It will insist that you need to do something, learn something, achieve something. It will tell you, that enlightenment is somewhere in the future, that you are not ready, not worthy, not capable. But what if that was just another illusion? What if there was no waiting, no becoming, no process, just this, right now? The moment you stop looking for it, the moment you stop chasing it like an object, you'll see that you were never separate from it in the first place. But this is hard for most people to accept. They want enlightenment to be special, profound, otherworldly. They want it to feel like a life-altering transformation, a cosmic shift, an explosion of divine realization. But the greatest trick the mind plays is convincing you that enlightenment is something different from what already is. It makes you believe that the ordinary is not enough, that right now, as you are, in this exact moment, you are not it. But you are. You always were. The only difference is whether you see it or not. And this is where we move deeper. If enlightenment is already here, already available, already present in every moment, then why don't people see it? Why do they spend lifetimes chasing it, meditating for decades, following spiritual systems that promise eventual liberation? The answer is simple: because they are caught in the illusion of seeking. The very act of searching is the thing preventing them from seeing what's already there. And in the next part, we're going to destroy that illusion once and for all. The search for enlightenment is what keeps you from it. The moment you start seeking, you create distance between yourself and what is already here. You believe it's something out there, something you must find, attain, or experience in the future. But that future never arrives. You read more books, listen to more teachers, meditate longer, follow techniques, waiting for the day when everything clicks. But the truth is, the act of seeking is the very thing keeping you from seeing. The mind is addicted to the chase. It thrives on the idea that there is something missing, that there is something to fix, something to improve. It tells you that you're not enlightened yet. But if you just do this one more thing, follow this one more practice, sit in meditation for many more years, then you'll get there. But you never do, because enlightenment isn't something to be reached. It's not at the end of the road. It is the road itself. And as long as you're walking toward it, you're walking away from it. Think about it. When has seeking ever brought you peace? When has the endless pursuit ever given you what you were looking for? Every moment you spend chasing something is a moment you are telling yourself that you don't have it, that it's not here, that it's not now. But what if that was the greatest illusion of all? What if the belief that you are separate from enlightenment was the only thing keeping you from seeing that you were never separate at all? Look at your own experience. Have you ever noticed that the moment you stop looking, stop analyzing, stop searching, there is just stillness, even if only for a second? That moment, right before the mind jumps back in and tells you, this isn't it. That moment is the truth. But the mind won't accept it. It will insist that it has to be more complicated, that it has to be a profound mystical event, a shattering of reality, an experience beyond words. But that's just another illusion. The idea that enlightenment is something other than what's happening right now is the last trick of the ego. So stop. Stop chasing, stop analyzing, stop trying to make sense of it. Just be here, completely. Right now, nothing is missing. There is no next step, no higher level, no final destination. This is it. And the more you let go of the need to make it something special, the more obvious it becomes. But most people can't accept this. They've invested too much in the journey. They've spent years, sometimes decades, believing that one day they will finally reach the peak. They don't want to hear that the peak was never real, that there was never a mountain to climb in the first place. That realization is terrifying, because it means everything they've been chasing, everything they've been holding onto, the books, the teachings, the techniques, was just another illusion. But it's only terrifying to the mind, to the ego. The real you, the you beyond thought, beyond identity, has never been searching. It has always been here, watching, waiting. The mind will fight this truth. It will resist, argue, try to find a flaw in it, because if it accepts it, it no longer has a job. Seeking is what keeps the mind in control. It keeps you believing that you need it, that without it you'll be lost. But you won't be. You'll be free. There is nothing to seek, nothing to gain, nothing to achieve. The moment you stop looking for it, enlightenment is there, staring you in the face. It always was. And now the only question left is, will you stop? Will you let go? Or will you continue the chase, knowing deep down that the thing you're running toward has been standing still all along? If you don't see it yet, don't worry. The illusion runs deep. And in the next part, we're going to look at one of the biggest traps people fall into, the idea that meditation is a tool to reach enlightenment. The truth is, meditation isn't a means to an end. It's the end itself. And when you finally understand this, everything changes. Meditation isn't a path to enlightenment. That's the lie most people never question. They believe that if they sit long enough, if they practice the right technique, if they empty their mind, they will eventually reach some final state of awakening. But the truth is, meditation isn't a tool to get somewhere. It's the realization that there is nowhere to go. The moment you sit with the idea that meditation is taking you toward enlightenment, you have already lost. Because that thought itself is separation. That thought itself is seeking. Look at how most people meditate. They sit, they close their eyes, and then they fight. They battle their thoughts, trying to silence them, trying to force their mind into stillness. They believe that if they can just suppress everything that arises, they will experience some perfect, peaceful state. But that's not meditation. That's control. And control is just another trick of the ego. The moment you try to force your mind to be quiet, you've already stepped into resistance. You've already created a struggle where there was none. Real meditation isn't about silencing the mind. It's about seeing that silence is already there. Right now, in this moment, silence is here. But you don't notice it because you're too busy trying to create it. You don't notice it because the mind is fixated on doing, on achieving, on effort. But meditation is not effort. Meditation is surrender. It's not about stopping thoughts. It's about stopping the one who is trying to stop thoughts. Imagine the ocean. Waves rise and fall, crash and dissolve, but the ocean itself never struggles. It doesn't resist the movement. It doesn't fight to keep the waves down. It just allows. The waves come and go, and beneath them, the ocean remains still. Your thoughts are no different. They rise, they fall, they disappear. The problem isn't the thoughts. The problem is that you believe they shouldn't be there. The moment you stop resisting them, the moment you let them come and go without clinging or pushing, you will realize that the stillness you were chasing was never missing. It was always there, beneath the noise, beneath the effort. Bodhidharma, the founder of Zen, sat facing a wall for 9 years, not to attain anything, not to reach some final state, but simply to be. That's the essence of real meditation. Just sitting, just breathing, just existing. No trying, no technique, no expectation, just this. But the mind doesn't like that answer. It wants something to do. It wants a step-by-step guide. It wants rules, methods, systems. But the truth is, the moment you turn meditation into a system, you've already lost. Because meditation isn't about doing. It's about undoing. It's about seeing through the illusion that there is something to fix, something to change, something to improve. Right now, wherever you are, take a breath. Just one. Don't control it. Don't manipulate it. Just let it happen. And in that moment, realize this: nothing is missing. Nothing needs to be different. This is meditation, not as a practice, not as a path, but as reality itself. People chase meditation techniques because they think they need them. They believe they are incomplete, unworthy, not ready. They believe they need more practice, more discipline, more time. But what if none of that were true? What if the only thing standing between you and enlightenment was the belief that you weren't already there? The mind will resist this. It will argue. It will try to hold on to effort, to struggle, to the idea that something more needs to be done. But that's just another illusion. And once you see through it, meditation stops being something you do. It becomes who you are. It becomes life itself. But there's an even deeper illusion beneath all of this, the illusion of the self. Because if there is no one meditating, then who is there to awaken? In the next part, we're going to destroy the final barrier, the belief that you are a separate self at all. And when that illusion collapses, everything changes. Who are you? Not your name, not your past, not your thoughts. Who are you beyond all of that? If you strip away everything you believe yourself to be, what remains? The mind will try to answer with labels, memories, ideas. It will say, I am me. I am this person. I have this life, this story, this identity. But is that really you? Or is it just another construct, another illusion? From the moment you were born, you were given a name, a background, a collection of beliefs about yourself. You were taught who you are, what you should think, what you should fear. Over time, those ideas became so deeply ingrained that they now feel like truth. But they are not the truth. They are conditioning, a lifetime of programming, shaping the way you see yourself. And here's the trap. Because you identify with these thoughts and beliefs, you assume they are you. But they are not. They are passing experiences, mental habits, learned narratives. They are no different from clouds drifting through the sky. And yet, you cling to them as if they define you. But who were you before you were given a name, before language, before thought? Who were you before you were told what to believe? If you sit with this question without reaching for an answer, something strange happens. The more you look for the self, the less you find. Every identity you try to grasp slips through your fingers. You say, I am my body, but the body changes. Cells die and regenerate, and what you were yesterday is not what you are today. You say, I am my mind, but thoughts come and go. Emotions shift, perspectives change. If the self were real, it would be unchanging, permanent, but nothing about you stays the same. So where is this I that you believe yourself to be? The great Zen masters knew this. They would ask their students, show me yourself, and no one could do it. Because the moment you try to point to the self, you realize there is nothing there, just emptiness, just awareness, witnessing all of this happen. The thoughts, the emotions, the sensations, they arise and disappear, but the witness remains. But here's where the illusion shatters. If the self is not real, then who suffers? Who seeks enlightenment? Who is there to be liberated? Suffering exists because you believe you are someone. You believe there is a you that needs to be protected, a you that can be hurt, a you that can lose, win, succeed, fail. But if the self is an illusion, what is there to protect? What is there to lose? The truth is, all suffering, all fear, all struggle comes from this one mistake: identifying with what is temporary instead of what is eternal. And what is eternal? Not you as a person, not you as a body or a mind. What is eternal is the awareness that sees all of it, the awareness that is not separate from anything, because it is everything. Right now, if you stop thinking, stop grasping for identity, what is left? Not a void, not nothingness in the way the mind fears it, but space, silence, presence, the same presence that has always been here, behind every experience, behind every moment. This is what you are, not a person, not a name, not a collection of thoughts, but the formless, boundaryless awareness in which all things appear and disappear. And when this is seen, suffering ends. Not because life becomes perfect, not because you never feel pain again, but because the one who suffers was never real to begin with. The game was rigged from the start. You were running from something that never existed. You were trying to awaken someone who was never asleep. But this realization is only the beginning. Many believe that enlightenment means an escape from the world, a departure from daily life, a radical transformation. But that's just another illusion, because after enlightenment, nothing changes. And yet, everything changes. And in the next part, we will break down what life looks like after the illusion of the self has been seen through. Because the great secret is this. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. But now, there is no resistance, no struggle, just life, exactly as it is. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Nothing changes, and yet, everything does. The greatest myth about enlightenment is that it transforms life into something other than what it is. That after awakening, you will walk through the world with a glowing presence, untouched by suffering, floating above the trivialities of human existence. But the truth is far simpler, far less dramatic, and far more profound. Life continues, unchanged in its outward form. The same tasks, the same responsibilities, the same world. But the way you see it, the way you experience it, is entirely different. Before, everything was filtered through the mind. Every experience was weighed, judged, labeled. Every moment was seen in relation to the self, what it meant for you, how it affected you, whether it brought pleasure or pain. The mind created resistance, turning simple moments into struggles. You were never just drinking tea, you were lost in thought, analyzing your day, reliving the past, planning the future. You were never just walking down the street, you were wrapped in judgment, comparing yourself to others, chasing some future version of yourself that never arrived. Every moment was a means to an end, and you were never truly here. But after enlightenment, there is only here. No more stories, no more seeking, no more resistance. Drinking tea is just drinking tea. Walking is just walking. The mind may still produce thoughts, but they are no longer taken so seriously. They come and go, like clouds passing through the sky, but the sky itself is undisturbed. This is the difference. Not that you stop thinking, not that you become some detached robotic being, but that you no longer cling to the fluctuations of the mind. There is no longer the illusion of a self trying to control, trying to improve, trying to find something more. This is what people misunderstand. They think enlightenment means an escape from life, from emotions, from challenges. But life doesn't stop. People will still come and go. Pain will still arise. The world will still be chaotic, unpredictable, and sometimes brutal. But none of it sticks. None of it leaves a mark. Because the one who used to suffer is no longer believed in. The waves continue to rise and fall, but the ocean is unmoved. There is no longer a need to fight reality. No need to force anything to be different from what it is. Whatever arises, arises. Whatever falls away, falls away. The difference is that now there is no one resisting it. No one needing life to be any other way. But here's the paradox. This doesn't make life dull or empty. It makes it more vibrant, more alive, more real than ever before. Without the constant noise of the mind, without the filter of the self, every moment is seen with perfect clarity. The ordinary becomes extraordinary. A leaf falling from a tree, the sound of rain against a window, the feeling of breath moving in and out. Each of these is complete in itself, without need for embellishment. Nothing is lacking, nothing is missing. The very things that were once overlooked or dismissed as mundane now reveal themselves as the very fabric of existence, shining with a quiet brilliance that was always there, just unnoticed. And yet, if you were to observe someone who has realized this, you might not notice anything different about them at all. They still laugh, still cry, still live, still work, still love. They experience the full range of human emotion, but without the attachment, without the false weight of identification. Anger comes and goes, but it does not linger. Sadness arises and dissolves, but it does not leave a scar. Joy is present, but it is no longer something to chase, something to cling to out of fear of its passing. Life moves through them, but they do not try to grasp it, do not try to control it. And because of that, they are free. But this kind of freedom is not what people expect. It is not the grand spiritual enlightenment they were promised. It is not the dramatic transformation they imagined. It is not the fireworks, the cosmic visions, the divine revelations. It is just this, life, exactly as it is, without the distortion of the mind, without the illusion of the self. It is so simple that most will overlook it. They will continue searching for something more, believing enlightenment must be something greater, something beyond. But that is the final trick of the mind, the last deception, the belief that what is already here is not enough. But it is. It always has been. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. The world remains the same, but you are no longer bound by it. You are no longer a prisoner to the stories of the mind, no longer caught in the endless struggle of becoming. There is no longer a destination, no longer a goal, no longer something to attain. There is only this. And yet, even after hearing all of this, even after realizing that enlightenment is nothing more than seeing reality without illusion, many will still ask, but how do I get there? That question itself reveals the illusion still at play. And in the next part, we will expose the final lie, the greatest deception of all, the belief that you were ever separate from it in the first place. You were never separate. The greatest illusion, the most persistent deception, is the belief that enlightenment is something to reach, that it is something outside of you, something distant, something hidden behind years of practice, effort, or discipline. But the truth is, you were never apart from it, not for a single moment. The only thing that ever made it seem distant was the idea that you weren't already it. From the time you were a child, you were conditioned to believe in separation, that there is a you and there is the world, that there is an observer and there is what is being observed, that there is a thinker and there are thoughts. But look closely, where is the line? Where does you end and the world begin? Right now, as you read these words, is there truly a boundary between you and the experience of reading? Or is there just reading, just experience unfolding moment by moment? The mind insists that you are separate. It clings to identity, to form, to labels, to stories. It tells you that you were born, that you have a past, that you are a person moving through time, heading towards some imagined future. But time itself is an illusion. You're not moving through time. You are always here. The past exists only as memory, the future only as thought, and yet neither of them exist anywhere but now. Everything you have ever experienced, everything you have ever known has only ever happened now. But the mind resists this truth, because if there is no past and no future, then what is left for the self to hold on to? This is why the mind fears the present moment. It is terrified of it, because the present moment has no use for stories, no use for identity, no use for all the illusions the self has built. The moment you fully surrender to this, the self begins to dissolve. Not in some dramatic mystical explosion, but in quiet realization. Like a dream fading upon waking, you do not need to fight it. You do not need to struggle. You only need to see that the self was never real to begin with. And yet people spend their entire lives trying to find what they have never lost. They search for enlightenment in books, in teachers, in techniques, never realizing that the very thing they are searching for is the one searching. That there is no you who will awaken. There is only awakening itself. Stop for a moment, right now. Look at your direct experience. Not your thoughts about it, not your mind's commentary on it, just this, just here, just now. Is anything missing? Is there anything incomplete? Or is the idea of incompleteness itself just another thought, another illusion? This is why Zen masters would remain silent when asked to define enlightenment, why they would laugh or point or simply walk away. Because anything they said would become another concept, another thing for the mind to grasp. But the mind cannot grasp this. It can only be it. It can only surrender to what has always been true. And that is the final secret. There is nothing to do, nothing to change, nothing to become. The biggest lie was that you were ever separate from this, that you needed to become something else. But you don't. You never did. And yet, the illusion of seeking is strong. Even now, the mind may whisper, "But what do I do next? How do I live in this realization?" That question itself is the final barrier. And in the next part, we will expose it for what it is. Because the truth is, there is no next. There is no future moment where you will get it. There is only now. And once that is seen, the cycle of control, seeking, and illusion finally collapses. There is no next. The mind wants one. It always does. It clings to the idea that something must come after this, that there must be another step, another teaching, another practice to follow. But that's the final illusion. The idea that something more is needed is what keeps you from realizing that nothing ever was. The cycle of seeking only continues because you keep feeding it. You keep believing the mind when it tells you that enlightenment is somewhere in the future, that it's just one more realization away. But how can something be in the future if reality is only ever now? This is how the trap stays in place. The spiritual search itself becomes an identity. People spend years, decades, even lifetimes chasing after awakening, believing they are progressing towards something. But progress is an illusion. There is no distance between you and reality. There never was. The moment you believe you are moving toward truth, you have already placed yourself apart from it. You have already bought into the idea that you are something separate, something incomplete. And as long as you believe that, the search will never end. But what happens if you stop completely? What happens if, just for a moment, you stop trying to become anything, stop trying to reach anything, stop trying to figure anything out? What happens if you just let everything be exactly as it is, without needing to change it, without labeling it as right or wrong, without resisting any part of it? That moment is the truth. That moment is what has been overlooked again and again. People avoid this realization because it means the end of the search, the end of the story, the end of everything they thought they were. It means letting go of every idea of what life should be, what enlightenment should be, what they should be. And the mind resists that because without the constant movement, without the endless process of seeking, what remains? The answer is terrifying to the ego. Just this, just here, just now. The mind will tell you this isn't enough, that this is too simple, that you must be missing something. But what if that voice was lying? What if this was always enough? What if enlightenment was never about becoming anything, but about realizing that there was never anything missing, that you are already home, and the only thing that ever made it seem otherwise was the thought that you weren't? The system thrives on people who are lost in seeking. The world benefits from people who are constantly trying to become something, improve something, achieve something. It keeps you consuming, keeps you dependent, keeps you convinced that happiness is always just out of reach. And if you don't see this clearly, you will spend your entire life searching for something you already have, hoping that one day something outside of you will finally make you whole. But it won't, because you already are. The truth isn't hidden, but most will never see it. Most will keep running in circles, chasing their own shadow, believing that the next book, the next teacher, the next practice will finally give them what they seek. But those who are ready, those who are willing to stop, to look, to see clearly, those are the ones who break free. The illusion only continues as long as you believe in it. The cycle of seeking only has power if you keep running. But you don't have to. You never did. The moment you stop, the moment you see through the deception, everything collapses. And all that remains is this: simple, uncomplicated, free. And yet, even now, the mind may whisper, "But what does this mean for my life? How do I live after this realization?" That is the final question, the last thread of attachment. And in the next part, we will cut it once and for all. Because the truth is, after enlightenment, life goes on exactly as before. The difference, you are no longer bound by it. What happens now? The mind wants to know. It wants a new purpose, a new direction, a new goal to replace the one that just crumbled. It asks, if there's nothing to seek, Then what do I do with my life? How do I live after seeing through the illusion? That question itself is the last remnant of the false self. The belief that life needs to have a purpose beyond simply being. That success, meaning, and fulfillment must be something to achieve rather than something that arises naturally, effortlessly, when you stop trying to force reality into a mold. People spend their lives chasing purpose as if it's something external, something waiting for them in the future. They believe they need to find their passion, build something great, and leave a legacy. But what is all of that really? Just another layer of identity, just another story, another thing the mind clings to in order to avoid the simplicity of being. The idea of success, of meaning, of finding one's true path is nothing more than another version of the same illusion that kept people chasing enlightenment in the first place. But life does not need a purpose. It does not need a grand narrative. It is already whole, already complete. When the illusion of seeking dissolves, life continues, but now it is free. You wake up, you eat, you work, you interact with people, but the heavy weight of expectation is gone. You are no longer trying to prove something, no longer measuring your worth by external standards, no longer trying to be more than what you already are. The idea that you must become something, that you must accomplish something significant, falls apart. And in that space, life unfolds effortlessly, naturally, without resistance. But this is not what people want to hear. They want to hear that enlightenment will give them ultimate clarity, a new mission, a divine purpose that will make everything feel important. But what if life doesn't need to feel important? What if it is enough just as it is? This is the greatest freedom, the freedom from needing life to be anything other than what it already is. After enlightenment, you don't escape the world. You don't become some detached figure floating above reality. You still exist, you still act, you still engage. But now, you are not trapped in it. There is no longer a false self clinging to outcomes, fearing failure, needing validation. You simply do what needs to be done, moment by moment, without resistance, without attachment. Some people may go on to create, to build, to teach. Others may simply live quietly, unnoticed. But neither path is better or worse, because there is no longer a need to compare, to measure, to justify one's existence. For the first time, life is lived without struggle, not because challenges don't arise, but because they are no longer personal. Success and failure lose their grip, because there is no self left to take credit or blame. You are no longer a prisoner of the mind's endless need for meaning, and in that freedom, life takes on a beauty that was always there, but never seen. Most people will never reach this point, not because it is difficult, but because it is too simple. The ego cannot accept the idea that there is nothing to be found. It will keep searching, keep trying to make enlightenment into something grand, something rare, something that requires years of effort. But those who truly see, understand that there is nothing to do, nothing to fix, nothing to achieve, just this, just life as it is. But even now, after everything that has been said, the mind may still resist. It may still look for something to hold on to, some final reassurance. And that is why, before we end, there is one last thing to say, one last illusion to dissolve. And when it's gone, there will be nothing left to question, nothing left to seek, only reality, exactly as it is. There is nothing left to say. That's the truth. That's what the mind refuses to accept. It wants one final insight, one last realization, one ultimate conclusion that ties everything together and delivers enlightenment like a prize at the end of a long journey. But there is no prize. There is no journey. There is only this, right now, just as it is. The greatest secret is that there was never anything to find. No awakening waiting in the distance, no higher state just beyond reach. The very idea that you were ever separate from truth was the illusion keeping you trapped. There is no you to awaken, no enlightenment to attain. The seeking was always happening within something that never needed to seek in the first place. The mind will protest. It will resist this, argue against it, try to break it apart with logic. Because this answer does not satisfy it. It wants complexity, depth, a philosophy it can carry, analyze, debate. But enlightenment is not an idea, it is not a belief, it is not even an experience. It is simply reality, unfiltered. And reality does not need your permission to exist. It does not need your understanding, your validation, your analysis. It was here before you thought about it, and it will remain long after all thoughts have faded. Right now, this moment is it. No matter where you are, no matter what you are doing, this is it. There is no next step, no deeper truth waiting for you, no technique that will finally unlock it. Either you see it or you don't. And if you don't, it is only because the mind is still searching for something other than what is already here. For most people, this is unacceptable. They will hear these words and reject them. They will return to seeking, to trying, to reaching for something they believe is missing. And that's fine. That's part of the game. But if you are ready, truly ready, you will stop. Right now. Not tomorrow. Not later. Not after more practice. Now. Because there is nowhere else to go. There never was. If you understand this, if you truly see it, then the search is over. Life continues as it always has. But now, there is no struggle, no resistance, no need for meaning beyond what is already here. There is no longer a false self trying to control it, to make it different, to make it fit an imagined future. There is just this. And yet, even after all this, most people will walk away from this video and continue seeking. They will continue looking for something more, something greater, something beyond. But some, just a few, will understand. And for those few, everything will be different. Not because life has changed, but because they no longer need it to. You were never separate from the truth. You were never lost. The mind created the problem, and the mind kept itself busy trying to solve it. But the moment you step outside of that cycle, it all collapses, and there is nothing left but reality, exactly as it has always been. This is not something you need to believe. It is not something to memorize or repeat or turn into another concept. It is something you either see or you don't. And if you do, then this really is the last video you will ever need on enlightenment. Most people will never hear what we cannot say here. That's why Insights Academy exists, a place for those who are ready to see deeper, beyond the surface, beyond what can be shared in the open. Sign up now at the link below and receive the Kybalion, a text that has guided seekers for centuries. Don't miss this opportunity. And if this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."